So there's been some developments this week. A lot is changing. I think coming to the realization of AI and how powerful it is and the opportunity that lies there with AI, it's hard to not take advantage of it, especially when it's such a high leverage play. I was reading the almanac of Naval Ravikant, and he's actually a very successful investor. I'd recommend reading his books and looking into his content. I'm not sure if he does content, but he is super successful. And his books they're really interesting to read, because you know those books where you just start reading it and you just basically fall asleep because it's so boring. His books are written in a way where I could just read it for hours, right? And I really like reading books like that because it's actually enjoyable to read, and all of the information that you feel like you're getting so much value from the information that he's giving. And I really like that experience when it comes to reading. But the things he says as well are really, really interesting about leverage, the different levels of leverage. He talks about how labor is the first form of leverage, but it's the oldest, right? With labor, you have to have really good management skills. It's going to take up a lot of your time, energy to manage the team, etc. And it's still a form of leverage, right? Doesn't require your personal attention to do what they do in terms of the inputs. But nevertheless, it's the lowest form of leverage. Now, he talks about the next level of leverage, which is money. So can you find something where you put £1 in and get £1.50 back, right? That's money. That's the next form of leverage, which is more modern, right? And then he talks about another form of leverage, which is replicating a product without a marginal difference in cost. Which is, he even goes to the point of saying, that could just be one of those products could be a podcast. It could be info, so ebooks. It could be information on how to complete a certain task. Could be a piece of software code. And he talks about how you could write the slightest little tint in code, which can produce you $500 million in equity, just from a little bit of code. It's really, really interesting. It made me sort of think about where we are at in the business, very labor intensive. And it sort of made me reanalyze things in terms of like, okay, do I want to be a labor intensive business? Do I want to have the oldest form of leverage that's sort of boosting my business? Or do I want to revert to more modern forms of leverage, which I'm currently utilizing, which a lot of people aren't utilizing? And do I want to use that as a form of leverage that I use for my business and rely on it for my business, which is going to take a lot less mental energy, which I can use that mental energy to put into more creative tasks, which I'm better at, as opposed to the daily nitty gritty grind, which is sort of feels like it's coming at no end. So these are all sort of things that I've been analysing this week around my business, the direction I want to take my business in. And I mean, I don't really know what's next for it, to be honest. I know I want to grow the business as much as possible, but it's just about how do I do that? I think AI is going to play a massive part into that. I want to be very leverage focused in terms of, can I spend money to get this much back? I want it to be very numbers orientated, and I want it to be a lot leaner than it has been. Just because I know the amount of headache that comes with that. And yes, I can put a second tier management structure in there, which probably is a better idea. But even better than that, can I develop my skills in more modern forms of AI and more modern forms of leverage, which I can then use to boost my business even further? So yeah, these are all different things that I've sort of been considering this week. I guess sort of like a little CTA from this is, have you guys had these sorts of thoughts recently? What sort of forms of leverage are you guys currently utilizing, and how are you taking advantage of more modern forms of leverage? Shout out to Naval Ravikant.